What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Late Round Fantasy Football Show, Week 2. And boy, do we have a lot of stuff to cover. We've got news. We've got people that are hurt. We got like turf toe. I'm telling you, I've had turf toe. It sucks. And so we got to talk about the Niners situation and a whole lot more. We've got stuff to look forward to. We got the quad box. It's a Late Round Fantasy Football Show sponsored by DraftKings. What's up, everybody? Welcome in to the Late Round Fantasy Football Show, Week 2. I'm David Kitchen, joined by JJ.
Hello. How's it going?
JJ, you're no longer, you thought you were moving up the ranks, the JJ ranks?
Oh, yeah, I thought
until
Monday night happened. The second half of Monday night happened, and JJ McCarthy looked good. I mean, we had Caleb Williams looking good in that first drive. I thought he still showed some flashes. That one throw, I still go back to that throw that Caleb had to Roman Dunze on the sideline when he scrambled, and it was just a dart right at the sideline. And Dunze made a great catch. But, I think there's going to be a little bit of growing pains with Caleb. But there was a tweet, and I can't credit because I don't know who said it, and I'm sure it was a common sentiment. But it did feel like JJ McCarthy showed more growth in one game than Caleb Williams has shown in over a year in the NFL, right? Like, we saw him completely turn things around in that second half, looked really good. I'm excited about what they have in JJ McCarthy and what that offense might look like, with Kevin O'Connell.
People were burying this Vikings offense in the first half, and then they were fine.
That's why you don't, guys, pro tip, okay? Been around the block for a while.
Yeah.
Don't send tweets, like definitive tweets about a player or game in the first quarter, first half of a game. Let it breathe a little bit. Let it breathe.
All right. Want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's show, DraftKings. We've got the deposit bonus you can get in there. You can see in the podcast description how to get that. You can also, JJ, scan the QR code if you're watching this.
Guys, no one uses QR codes, right?
They do. Ever since 2020, people use QR. If you are watching this,
what does 2020 have to do with it?
Because COVID happened, and then people didn't want to look at a menu. I'm taking you back to the history of when QR codes exploded. People didn't want to
QR
touch.
Codes have been around forever.
Right, but people didn't want to touch a menu, so they started scanning things.
I hate to break it to you, but no one cares about germs anymore.
They still use QR codes. Companies use them on Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah, but no one's on their computer looking up and like a boomer putting their phone up to the monitor and trying to scan a QR code.
Okay, we have too much to talk about to worry about this.
Right, let's
in the chat.
Arguing. Okay, all right.
In the chat, I just need you to know. And then comments later, are you team QR codes or are you not?
It's pretty split right now, but C Park says, what is a QR code? Just woke up from my 20-year coma. It's been around for a while.
This is a great way to use them. People are on their, imagine watching this show on the big screen. You just, there you go. I got my deposit bonus on DraftKings.
Look, if we get enough people that say they want to use a QR code, we'll keep it.
We're keeping it. All right. Also, we got the weekly rankings, in-season rankings, Discord, everything on Patreon. We had a Q&A earlier this week with my first time hosting it during the season with that. Yeah. So that was fun. So lots of fun there on the Patreon. If you're not a member, just consider doing it.
Discord's popping, man. And last night, I got to say, in the live game banter channel on Discord, when Tucker Kraft started going ballistic against Washington. I mean, obviously that was one of my dudes this year. And so a lot of people, have listened to my work or whatever, they ended up drafting him. There are maybe 5 to 10 players a year, maybe 5 players a year where they're a Discord player. And when they go nuts, the Discord goes nuts. And that is one of the players this year. So it was a really fun time last night.
Yeah. And the Zap model is cooking. I mean, it's doing pretty well. I mentioned that in the newsletter. If you're not already subscribed, please please do that. It helps us out. I spend some time on that newsletter. JJ writes the 15 trends earlier in the week, and then the data dump.
15 transactions.
What did I say? Trends?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
I just gotta make it right so people don't. Because look, when I misspeak,
yeah,
people will yell at me, and I just want to make sure that you're also, not misspeaking, because people might yell at you.
15 transactions, and then we both did the data dump this week.
That's right.
So, yeah,
that's right.
You're giving me the data, and then I'm dumping it in there and formatting it, making sure it's a nice, clean looking data dump in the newsletter. Some are saying it's the best looking data dump that the newsletter has ever had.
I mean, it's true, because I used to just copy and paste it. So yes.
When I looked at past years, I was like, oh, this will be easy. So lots of formatting stuff. And with that, JJ, are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right.
Today's fantasy news.
All right. A total disaster in San Francisco. Have you ever had turf toe, JJ?
No, I haven't. I've broken a finger, broken a foot, never had turf toe.
I've broken a femur.
That doesn't seem fun.
Beat that.
You were pretty. You seemed like you were pretty injury prone.
I had pretty much a hospital wing named after me when I was growing up, just for all the sports. Femur, broken femur playing soccer, torn ACL playing basketball.
Start calling you Kenneth Walker.
But I remember I had turf toe, and my friend, my guys, the group chat, they still make fun of me whenever turf toe's mentioned, because they would get around my foot and I'd be like, turf toe. And then they started mocking me saying, turf toe. It hurts though. It sucks. And now we've got Mac Jones under center in San Francisco because of it.
My reaction is that it's probably not. And again, for those audio listeners, I write my reaction as Kitchen introduces all these news items. I don't know what we're going to talk about in this section of the show. And so I'm just reacting. And my reaction is it's probably not the worst thing in the world for San Francisco, because you have this infrastructure with Kyle Shanahan. We've seen sort of like random quarterbacks be okay from like a, accounting stats perspective within this Kyle Shanahan system. Mac Jones, if you recall, back when Mac Jones was drafted, everyone thought that was the Kyle Shanahan quarterback, because he would fit what he generally wants to do. And even last year, like Jones helped. I mean, if you recall, like Jones was the quarterback when Brian Thomas was going nuts in fantasy football. And so I'm not like overly concerned. I think you see a slight downward bump from like a projection standpoint and such, and like a Ricky Pearsall, and even a CMC. CMC is still tier 1 for me this week, but the other running backs in tier 1, I just put above him for the most part, aside from Saquon, who just gets a really tough matchup against Kansas City. And so I don't want to like overstate how bad this is for fantasy. The problem I'm going to have is that Brock Purdy, when he returns from injury, I'm afraid that the mobility won't be there the same way. And that was one of the reasons why, he was an easy draft pick this year, like an okay draft pick. It's because last year we saw more of that mobility from him. And I just don't know if it's going to be there the same way once he comes back from the injury. But of all sort of situations where something like this would happen and a quarterback gets hurt, it's probably one of the best ones for a backup quarterback to still be okay.
Mac Jones has been an interesting pickup in Superflex leagues as well. If you just absolutely need a quarterback, I mean, it could be worse. People were drafting like Sam Darnold last year, and I remember in best ball, because they thought if something happened, or maybe it was 2 years ago, if something happened there in San Francisco, just Shanny,
because Darnold was good last year.
Yeah, a Shanny quarterback though.
Yeah,
hey, this is fine. All right, Eckler, sad face. It sucked last night. It doesn't matter if you had tons of Bill Krosky. If you are a fantasy fan, you know that Austin Eckler has been a huge advocate for the industry, and he's probably done now. His career is probably done.
Yeah, it could easily be done. I don't want to say for sure, because he's a gym rat. Like he is ridiculously in shape, and he will more than likely try to work back from this. But maybe he doesn't, because he sees some media opportunities or something outside of it, because he's great in front of a camera and whatnot. But regardless, it's a really, really sad situation. That's my reaction. We're going to get into what this means for that backfield later on in the show. So I'll wait to sort of talk about that until later. But yeah, I mean, like, it's not fun to see, you know, a guy who is on the older side or on the wrong side of the running back age cliff. You know, it was the classic Achilles injury, an Achilles tear. And we all knew whenever it happened. I know that some people were tilting because Al Michaels was like, hopefully we see him back next week or something like that. And people were just not happy about that reaction. But regardless, you know, I think that that we should, you know, at least follow what Eckler's doing outside of football, because he's been, like you said, a really good advocate of fantasy football.
For sure. And then on the, you know, Eckler knows as a fantasy guy, if someone goes down, we have to evaluate what's going to happen in that backfield in Washington. And you had people were tilting also in the you know, in the Discord whenever Bill Krosky-Merritt was not in there at the end, but he's not the 2-minute back right now. Yeah. So you have any takes on Krosky-Merritt in that backfield situation?
We'll get to it later on in the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we will. We'll get to
that's what I was saying before. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's get to another guy then. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Another just like, I mean, this isn't to be like punny or anything. It's just a really bad break, right? Like it's a collarbone break, unfortunately. And it's a bad break for Jayden Reed, where we were worried about the foot injury, you know, going into the season. And then this is a freak injury. Like this was just, he landed on his.
It was a good catch.
Oh, it was a great play. Yeah, it was an awesome play.
It didn't count. That's what sucks the most. When people get hurt on plays that don't count, I feel terrible for them.
Well, it also is unfortunate because I have a deep league where I had to start him, and you know,
I'm so sorry.
Would have loved having those points. Would have been great. But yeah, I mean, like we are going to refer to this again later in the show as well. But one player that I'm not going to talk about is Matthew Golden. Okay. I had someone in my mentions today already say, I'm going to drop Matthew Golden. You know, I'm not getting anything out of him. Guys, if you drafted a rookie, you do not drop them, especially like a higher end rookie. I'm not talking like a random, you know, Ollie Gordon type player. Yeah. I'm talking about a first round wide receiver who had, yes, a questionable analytical profile, but an early declare receiver who had a really good camp, who's in a really good offense. The Packers offense is for some reason just undervalued in general. Like Matt LaFleur has basically only had top 10 offenses and touchdowns per game since he got to Green Bay every single year. And so you want to associate your players with this kind of system in this offense. I know that they're frustrating as can be with their wide receivers, but guess what? One of them is now out for 6 to 8 weeks. So Matthew Golden could have a more stable route share than he did before. And so I do not drop Matthew Golden. This is the opposite time to drop Matthew Golden. If it's week 5, week 6, and you're not seeing anything from him, sure, I understand like the urge and maybe having to do that. But after 2 weeks, he's played 2 NFL games, and now one of the guys in the offense is out for 6 to 8 weeks. You do not drop Matthew Golden right now.
Okay, we've got some the theme if on the like the Q&A was tight end because lots of people had Kittle, and obviously he's out now on the IR. Brock Bowers missed some practices. Dallas Goedert missed some practices. Evan Ingram missed some practices, but should be okay. You know, what is your take on the tight end madness going on right now?
My take is the tight end dead zone is real. But not from the standpoint of Kittle and Bowers, obviously. But I think that what we're finding off the waiver wire this week is that when you invest in certain tight ends in that dead zone area that don't fit the right archetypes, and the right archetypes, it's written in the guide, are, you know, younger players, right? Or guys who have a clear path to being a top 2 target on their team. So when you're drafting older tight ends or guys who are in more questionable situations, you're bound to find disappointment, right? And so then when you get inevitable injuries, because tight end is a brutal position to play. I mean, because they have to do both things. They have to run routes and they have to block. And so when you get these inevitable injuries at tight end and you combine that with disappointment at the position, which is inevitable too, because it's just what happens in the position every year. I did that episode on the tight end dead zone. I don't like the name for the tight end dead zone. It's just an easy way to sort of encompass what I'm trying to say here. you get more competition than off the waiver wire for the guys like Juwan Johnson and Harold Fannin. And hopefully you guys listen to the mailbag episode that dropped today. If you're listening on audio, it dropped yesterday. I talked more in depth about Fannin. I'm buying more and more into Fannin, and it being a pretty legit situation for him. I think that the connection between Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews from last year, and Likely having a big week 1 performance and Andrews still having more routes. I think that what I said on the show really should be stressed is that Harold Fannin is a better prospect and already looks better than Isaiah Likely from like a fantasy perspective and like what we want out of a, pass catching tight end. And Mark Andrews is better than David Njoku. So I think there's actually like some chance that Harold Fannin is just a better fantasy asset than David Njoku this year. There's obviously the out too that Njoku gets traded or something at some point this year. And I'm not saying that that's the likely outcome. I'm saying that is a possible outcome that we should be open-minded to. So this is all just to say that there's a lot of variance at tight end. And when there's a lot of variance at the position and there's good waiver wire ads, you're going to get more competition for those players off the waiver wire.
Okay. Speaking of tight end madness, you mentioned it. If you drafted Kraft, you have to be feeling really good. I mean,
yeah. Feeling great.
Yeah. Can you just take a real quick victory lap?
No.
Okay. No,
absolutely not.
Really? After over 100 yards?
We don't talk about that until after the season's over, Kitchen.
Okay.
That's how I operate.
Ask.
Yeah. Maybe like I'm not going to take an anti-victory lap against about Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers. Yeah. I made a bet Zay Flowers versus Devonta Smith, and I have Devonta Smith, so I'm not feeling good about that. But
no, I mean, look, Dallas Goedert's likely out this weekend because he didn't practice today.
Yeah,
and so I think that we could see a bounce back with Devonta Smith and AJ Brown.
Be good for the bags.
This is exactly the contingent upside stuff that we've talked about with those players. Is that they were being drafted basically at their projection, but when one of them is out, the other guys can thrive. Like both Devonta Smith and AJ Brown could see a 60% target share combined this weekend, and I don't think anyone would be that shocked if that happens.
Yeah, Ertz has been dope too, says Mapex. Last night he seemed like he was the go-to guy.
I'm glad. Yeah, I didn't get to the point where, and when I say older players, for the record, I mean in the middle round, like that tight end, like spending up for the older tight end is usually not the idea. When you're going late, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's like none of those, like a lot of those guys just aren't going to hit in general. So if you drafted Ertz, I mean, you feel decent right now. I don't know if it's going to sustain this way, but you at least feel pretty good.
All right. Quinshon Judkins is officially questionable this week.
I'm not holding my breath that he's gonna, get significant work this week. I still think Dylan Sampson's probably the play out of that backfield, but I talked about this on the mailbag episode. I think that in the short term, we still have to be somewhat concerned. I know I whiffed on the Jerome Ford pick last week. But I think the process was actually there with Jerome Ford because Dylan Sampson got a ton of looks through the air. Ford actually played more, like a lot of the long down and distance 2-minute snaps. Like it was the role that I thought that he would be playing. And it's just that Sampson had a really ridiculous targets per route run rate, like an insane targets per route run rate. That's not going to happen each and every week. And a game against Baltimore does scare me a little bit about Sampson. Like I think he's a good sleeper. That's fine. You can use him. I think he's like an RB3 type, but it does scare me a little bit that if they do see a really big negative game script against Baltimore, we're going to see more Jerome Ford. We didn't witness that against Cincinnati, right? Like that game was close. It's just that we didn't think it was going to be close. And so I do still have some worry there. I don't think Judkins, even if he plays, I don't know how many touches you think he'll see, like 5 to 7, like nothing insane, I would imagine. But I do think
he's been practicing for a week.
I do think that starting soon, we're going to see Judkins as the 1A, Sampson as the 1B, Ford thrown in there in, the LaQuinn Allen role, if you will. And then as the season goes on, they're going to fade out Ford a little bit more and hope that Dylan Sampson can kind of play that type of role. And that would make him a little bit more valuable. Look, Judkins more than Sampson, in my opinion, just given like the archetype that he is. He fit more of like that Jonathan Taylor style of like, maybe an 8 to 10% target share in the NFL if things really hit for him and like went right, and he would see a lot of work on the ground. So at the moment, like I think Sampson would be more the pass catcher between the two.
All right, you've already talked a lot about the Jag stuff. I just took it off as far as the running backs go, but you concerned at all about the Travis Hunter playing more defensive snaps this week?
No, not really. I think that they need to get something going on offense against Cincinnati. I think this is more so just like, hey, let's just throw it at them this week because this is a really tough offense to play against. I would be surprised if Travis Hunter is not the number 2 routes run wide receiver for Jacksonville this week.
Okay. All right. Now to the Dolphins, because it's still gross. We've got reports of the Chiefs being a trade target. Chiefs and another team were reportedly interested in Pittsburgh. It's right.
Yeah.
For Tyreek. And then you've also got now Waddle banged up. You've got Waller basically is retiring. I mean, he's not.
Yeah, he's likely a 0 this year.
He's done. So what are we doing about the Dolphins?
I feel good about Waddle playing this weekend. I think I saw that he was expected to like an hour ago or so. So that's good. I mean, my stance is that this is really, really volatile. It's a very volatile situation. They, they should be able to be. I haven't seen Christian Gonzalez's status. Is he playing this weekend? Do you know?
Not sure.
I'm assuming. I can't remember what the injury even was for him. Because obviously we're focused so much more on
the
offensive side of the ball. But no, it looks like he's not practicing today. So he missed every practice this week. He's probably not going to go. That really helps the Miami offense, right? So people are saying he's out. Okay. That helps the Miami offense quite a bit. We saw New England, they were thrown on last week against Vegas. So hopefully that helps. The offensive line is a disaster. The really weird thing about Tyreek Hill that I feel like should be getting more run than is the off the field stuff with his ex that's been going on. There's apparently
they said they launched an internal investigation.
And like all the while there's like trade rumors and stuff. Like there's zero chance that he, in my opinion, there's not a high chance at least that he would get traded while that is still going on. Right.
Yeah.
So look, you just got to cross your fingers and hope that they can find some magic this week. They were just a disaster last week. They couldn't get anything going. The offensive line looks horrible. The only player that looks legitimate is Achane. Yeah. And even then you gotta still hope that he can find the end zone. I mean, you just got to see what happens this week.
Okay. As far as like the Waddle situation, I just think he's so small. Those tiny receivers, they seem
I mean, like, I don't know about injury proneness, and a lot of doctors will say that injury proneness isn't real. I don't really fully agree just intuitively with that.
Like you're 160 pounds, like it just
seems and there's some things that like your bodies can and can't do, and everyone's different. And we've all played sports or we've all like done things before, and we have certain parts of our body and things that our bodies do that we're good at and bad at. And so I don't know why that wouldn't apply to an athlete, an NFL athlete. Do I think injury proneness is like overstated? Of course, 100%. But a guy like Waddle, like Deontay Johnson was like this, where he would just seemingly get banged up every single game, and it was really frustrating. I mean, that's basically what we're looking at with Jalen Waddle at this point. It's like every game, it seems like he leaves for like at least a drive or two, and then he's either out or he comes back. But he's got these like nagging injuries all the time.
Okay, we got a little bit of coach speak here where Chris Godwin returned, and Todd Bowles said that he could play on Monday.
He also said that he could be back for the playoffs.
I was about to say, our good buddy Pat Thorman said there's a chance if we can make a late playoff run, he could be back.
I mean, I'm just not like, I'm not buying into anything that Todd Bowles says. And Emeka Egbuka looked great in week 1. They ended up getting a W. Even when Godwin's back, it's going to take time, I think, for a ramp up. Like, this is an older wide receiver. I say older, like, it's just not a prime in his prime, who's coming off a major injury, who's already like behind their initial timetable. And they have a stud that they drafted in the first round who's already performing. I just don't see a need for them to rush him back, nor do I think that when he comes back, he's just going to be like, sure, yeah, let's throw him in our fantasy lineup. So I'm still not. I still think like week 5 is when we see him probably, and then I don't think we're going to use him in fantasy probably until like week 7, let's say.
Okay, Xavier Worthy, he's unworthy of the IR. He's back. This kind of sucks.
Why?
Because I want like definitive information.
Yeah, but it's good that he's not on IR and he's out for the year or something like that.
Yeah, okay, that part is good that he's like.
Why do you
like,
hate Xavier Worthy?
If you have Xavier Worthy, are you playing him this week?
No, of course not. I don't think that he's
saying.
I don't think he's going to play. I don't think he'll play this week.
But what if he does?
Then you don't play him. Like I think that there's a lot of risk in doing that. Plus he's like probably playing with that, like, you know, that
shoulder brace.
That harness or whatever. I think it's surprising because of all the reports and stuff and what we initially thought, but I'm not expecting him to play this week. And if he's not in, that means Hollywood Brown is probably in store for like an 8 to 10 target game at a minimum, right? Because of what we saw, you know, last week. Tough matchup. I think that game just, like, to me, I know that we've seen some high scoring games between those two teams in the past, but it just screams like just a really like low scoring game that I don't like. I'm not like overly excited about as excited as I should be given the two quarterbacks who are at play, right? With Mahomes and Jalen Hurts and the offenses and the firepower that they have. But maybe Kansas City really is going to be a pass funnel this year, and that will help speed up the pace a little bit and get more scoring.
Okay. Drake London and Mooney to play this week. That's good.
Yeah.
For Atlanta. Anything to add about this Atlanta offense? I saw you answer a Penix question.
Yeah, I think Penix is a good play for like the first half of the season. In like a deeper, like quarterback's really, really deep. And so you don't need to like force it with Penix. Even this week, I do have some concern about the pressure that Minnesota should be able to generate, Minnesota's front. But I think that what we'll see is just like a pass heavy script from Atlanta because, it's in Minnesota, it's in a dome. Obviously the Minnesota defense can play well and then the offense can play well. And so that could create that negative game script. And then maybe Atlanta can't run the ball as well and yada, yada, yada. Right. So I think Penix is a decent enough streamer this week, but they have a really good schedule moving forward. So I think having both Mooney and Drake London back just makes me feel better about Penix being a reasonable streamer. And look, this to me is like quintessential why that early season schedule analysis episode that I do each year is really, really important. We have situations like this that pop up every year and people are like, man, Penix is really, really good. And he might be really good, but we also have to focus on who they're playing. And the schedule is very strong. So don't be surprised if we're like in week 7 and everyone's like, Michael Penix is the next big thing. And he might be, right? But again, a lot of that can be driven by who they're facing as well. And they have a really, really nice schedule.
Today's data.
All right. Today's data. I do want to preface all of this by making a quick statement. So last week, I shared some data about AI. Shared some data that I fed into ChatGPT and worked with AI on.
Clean data.
It thanked me for that, which someone else was like, that's not a good thing because AI is going to take over, like that kind of attitude towards it. And then I had a lot of people responding being like, man, like me being a sellout for using AI and ChatGPT. Like I'm not doing the analysis. Guys, I'm still doing the analysis. I'm just having them crunch some numbers and do the formulaic stuff that saves me a ton of time that I don't have to do. I came up with the idea. I fed it the data. I guided it through calculating that data. And I fact checked it too, to a certain degree. I didn't like redo all the work because that defeats the purpose. And the whole point in sharing that stuff was more for just like interesting insight. It wasn't something that I dug into in a super, super deep way and like did an entire podcast episode off of it. Maybe I will this off season, but to me, it was just an interesting thing to share. And to me, I think AI is important for me to understand, for me to use as a data person, and for me to come up with different and unique insights that I otherwise might not have discovered and figured out. So if you're anti-AI, that's your choice. I'm not going to hate on you. I don't hate on anyone for whatever choice they want to make. But that's the way that I approached that. And it wasn't like hey, JJ is just not doing any work now. And it took a lot of work to get that done, right? That's not the way that AI works. You don't just click a button with this kind of stuff and it just does everything for you. Other stuff it can, but that wasn't the case with this. This is nothing AI driven at all. I pulled all of this for today's data. I was really curious. I talked about this a little bit on the 10 Trends episode this week because JSN had some of the most insane peripherals that I have ever seen from a single game for a player. He had like a 91% air yard share. He had a 59% target share in that game. And so I was curious, like on the 10 Trends episode, I looked at players in history since 2011 who had a 50% or better target share in any game in a season. And the results were really good, obviously, because if you're getting a 50% target share, you're a good player. You're a good wide receiver. So obviously the results of those players and how they finished their season was really, really strong. But what I was more curious about was, let's look at the first month of the season, the first 4 weeks of the season, and guys who got a 50% target share in that bucket, because, you know, some of the results in the other grouping and the other query that I ran was that, you know, they got to a 50% target share in like week 15 or something like that. Like maybe they hadn't done anything and then all of a sudden they just got to that 50% target share. This is more so, okay, my team is relying on me very early on in the season at a very, very high clip, right? And not only that, when you get that 50% target share, typically, you know, you're going to obviously see a lot of volume, but there's a player like Zay Flowers last week who was at 47%. The volume wasn't even that insane for Flowers because they didn't drop back to pass that much, right? And Seattle didn't drop back to pass that much either, but JSN still saw 13 targets in that game. It was still a decent target, getting game. So I look back, there have been 6 other wide receivers since 2011 who got a 50% or better target share in the first month of the season. Here's how they finished. Okay. Julio Jones, he did in week 3 in 2015. He scored 23.4 PPR points that year. He was the wide receiver too. Deebo Samuel in 2021. In week 1, he had a 52% target share. He finished with 21.2 PPR points per game. That was his big season. Wide receiver 3 finished. Devontae Adams in 2021, week 3. He had 18 targets, a 60% target share, 21.5 PPR points per game, a wide receiver 2 finish. Mike Evans in 2015, week 3, he had a 52% target share, 15.1 PPR points per game, a wide receiver 21 finish. He's the worst one on this list. The other two, DeAndre Hopkins, Malik Neighbors last year, they were both top 6 wide receivers in that year where they had a 50% or better target share in one of their first 4 games. JSN, part of that group. If you just want to average out, right, and what we have, I'll do it right here while I'm speaking. If you want to just average out the points per game that we see from these wide receivers, 20 PPR points per game is the average for those guys. I'm not saying that's going to happen for JSN, but I am saying, and yes, that's PPR points per game finish for the record. I see Ethan asking that question. JSN, I'm not saying is going to score 20 PPR points per game, but I am saying that it's definitely not a bad sign that his peripherals were as good as they were in week 1.
There you go. When you mentioned like Julio Jones, gosh, peak Julio Jones was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing him as a Titan, not so awesome. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, look, you could also look at just the names on this list. It's Julio Jones, Deebo Samuel, and that was Deebo Samuel's like really, really strong season. Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, DeAndre Hopkins, and Malik Neighbors. That's it. They're all studs. So I'm anticipating. I want to be higher than the market on JSN is what I'm saying. Like I was already higher. Like I said on the show, I was already higher. I thought he was kind of the firewall, in that 3rd round in drafts, and push him up the board rest of the season rankings. I mean, he is legit, a very legit wide receiver. And if these peripherals even stick, even in a semi-decent way, I do like Cooper Kupp this week, as I said in the sleeper show, but if they stick in any sort of way, he's going to smash this year.
JSN, more like JS him.
That's right.
The late round main event.
All right. We are here. It is the main event. I'm going to share players that I am higher on versus consensus this week. We'll start at quarterback. Joe Burrow. I have him at QB3. Consensus has him at QB4. I'll tell you what, Kitchen. I am mad that we got that Thursday night game last night because when I compare my quarterback rankings to consensus, Fantasy Pros consensus right now, and I just, I do it after the fact just to be able to have some talking point, on this show.
Yeah.
I had the one player. Every quarterback is like 1 or 2 spot difference. Like I'm pretty chalky at quarterback this week. There was one player that I was 4 spots higher than consensus this week, and he was on the sleeper show, and he came through last night, and it's Jordan freaking Love, and I love him for it, but I hate that he had to play on Thursday night because he would have been the easy pick for this quarterback spot.
You know what, though? It's probably a good thing because you know what we don't do on the show?
What's that?
Take victory laps.
We don't.
No.
I'm just mad.
I know you're just mad. I'm just saying we are not going to mention on this show that you loved Love last night and that you were right about him. That's right.
We're definitely not.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow. I have my QB3. Consensus has him my QB4, and this was because I had him over Jaden Daniels last night. I think that was the difference between the rankings. But I'll just fact check really quick. Yeah. Jalen Hurts. So I have him above Jalen Hurts, but Jaden Daniels. I had him ahead of, I guess technically Joe Burrow was ranked ahead of Jaden Daniels. So I don't want to throw the other rankers under the bus. But look, this game against Jacksonville, highest total on the slate. Jacksonville entered 2025 with PFF's 13th worst secondary. I said 13th ranked. It's the 13th worst secondary. And so Burrow has averaged against Cleveland 14.2 points per game over his last 4. And that's clearly not where, his points per game has been outside of Cleveland. It's been closer to like 20 over the last few years. So I like Burrow in this game. I think this is a shootout type environment. I'm going to reference other players from this game as well. I think you should feel good about a bounce back this week from Joe Burrow.
And hopefully Jamar Chase. If you drafted Jamar Chase, you're freaking out just a little bit. We need a little bit of comfort there for the number 1 overall pick. All right, running back, you got Travis Etienne.
I got Etienne. This is pre-Thursday night. I have him at RB13. Consensus has him at RB18. Again, highest total on the slate this week. Cincinnati is weak defensively, despite what we saw last week against Cleveland. That was a divisional game, and we know, that Cleveland's not the best offense in the world. Etienne is coming off a game where he has 64% running back rush share, a 10% target share. Tank Bigsby's now gone, which gives him more upside at the goal line and in short yardage situations. So I think Etienne is just kind of, I just think he's a little bit undervalued just based on what his role should be. Now, I actually am higher on Bashaw Tutin as well this week because I think Tutin could carve out like a 40% running back rush share realistically. Like there's a very real chance Etienne 64% rush share, 10% target share doesn't really change that dramatically without Tank Bigsby, and Tutin is just the winner. Talked about this in the mailbag a little bit, but I still like Etienne quite a bit this week, versus the rest of the position.
Yeah, and we get to see like I know we have our like LaQuinn Allen. I don't want him to be a thing.
He's going to be a thing.
I know. I don't want him to be a thing.
LaQuinn Allen is going to play, long down and distance snaps. Probably if they're trailing, I think the big test is going to be if they're trailing, is he going to be on the field a whole lot as their pass catcher? I like LaQuinn Allen as a player, as a prospect. I just think that Bashaw Tutin has more upside.
Yeah, I don't. I just want all of my Etienne and Tutin teams to feel good about themselves.
Yeah, and Ethan's asking what's Tutin's path when Allen is getting running back targets. Go listen to the mailbag episode. I talked about that on the mailbag. You got to remember that third downs are not happening every single series, right? Like first and second down backs, this is where we're going to mostly see Etienne and Bashaw Tutin.
Okay. Next, wide receiver.
The wide receiver, I'm probably going to be higher on most weeks, unless something changes with the market, is Jacoby Myers. Week 1, 30% target share, 93% route share, 62% slot rate. So seeing better matchups, 17.7 PPR points. Guys, since Devontae Adams left Vegas, this is after week 3 last year, Jacoby Myers has a 28% target share per game rate, and he's averaging 15.2 PPR points per game. Vegas, the matchup isn't necessarily spectacular this week against LA, but indoor game, so we could see a little bit more scoring. You give it a little bit of a boost. And also, last week, Vegas had the 3rd highest pass rate over expected according to NFELO in the NFL. So maybe it's going to be a more pass-heavy offense than we expected. Jacoby Myers is already seeing a high target share. Brock Bowers is banged up. I mean, Jacoby Myers to me is just like a great play basically each week. And if consensus is going to rank him as like a fringe wider, like almost a wide receiver 4. I'm going to call him out almost every week on this show until that changes.
Okay. And we think Brock Bowers is going to play this week.
Yeah, we think. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, he's banged up. Maybe if he's not 100%, then that could still help.
But even so, Jacoby.
Yeah, even with Bowers, he's fine.
Right. All right. Now on to tight end. You've got Jake Ferguson. You're ranking him tight end 9. The consensus is tight end 13.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really feel like strongly about this. This is just the way that my projections and rankings kind of worked out this week. 25-point implied team total for Dallas, 83% route participation for Ferguson last week, 18% target share. You bring it all together and you're like, okay, this is a very usable tight end. Like you get a top 10-ish route share, a really solid target share, a high implied total. That's really what it comes down to at the tight end position. There are other sleepers I like for sure at tight end this week. But this was the guy who versus, consensus and versus the market, my ranking or my rankings seem to like quite a bit.
I've got Bowers in one of my leagues, and a guy picked up 2 tight ends and dropped Chig as one of the guys. I know you mentioned earlier, but I'm probably going to be trying to pick him up off of waivers before Sunday.
I think Chig should be rostered still. Like he had really good route participation rate in week 1. His target share wasn't even that bad. It was just a really tough matchup against Denver. We should see a little bit more movement from the Tennessee passing attack this week.
Oh boy, we are going to see a lot of movement. We're going to see.
There were some bad drops last week by Calvin Ridley. Alec Iamaner got deep frequently, and maybe they connect on one of those. So I'm if you look at the box score and you look at the advanced stats, like things didn't look good for Cam Ward, but I thought he showed a decent bit. If you
pretty much every QB analyst this week said that he had a great game. He was just let down. He was also let down by his coach. And I've talked to you about this earlier, but it's big in the Tennessee circle that Iamaner got a 22-yard catch, which would have extended a drive, had his elbow down, which counts as 2 feet. Tennessee Callahan and his staff did not know that rule. And they said he had to get a foot down and an elbow down. And, that stuff I think we're just going to see.
He's got like he had the highest ADOT in week 1. Cam Ward did. Yeah. So he's got the aggression, which is really fun, like for fantasy and just for watching, but he also has some mobility to him. I mean, he escaped the pocket well.
Pass he threw, when he's running, scrambling.
There's definitely a lot to like from what I saw week 1. And I know I'm the data guy. I don't give my film takes, but I have to watch all these games.
Get your hand in the dirt for this one, JJ.
I don't want to sound like a moron when I'm talking about stuff. I don't think data tells the entire story about a lot of stuff. I just think that it's we're playing fantasy football is a numbers driven game, and we should lean into numbers because of that. But you can still use your eyes to figure some stuff out too. I mean, you got to.
Of course. Jobo Bondi says Kitchen the homer. I resemble that. All right. Let's get on to bold predictions for week 2.
Yeah, my first one is very simple. I think Detroit bounces back. They're at home. Chicago's defense looked decent in week 1. I don't want to take anything away from that performance, but we saw them get torn up a little bit in the second half, against JJ McCarthy. It was also in Chicago. This one's in a dome. We know that the Lions are sorry. I get so distracted whenever all these pop-ups are coming up while I'm talking.
Sorry. I was trying to highlight Ethan that said JJ disavows data more at 11.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But the line, Jared Goff splits at home and away, very much a better at home, under a dome, in a dome quarterback. And this is a little vibesy, but they played Green Bay in week 1. And we saw last night, Green Bay's defense is unbelievably legitimate. Green Bay right now today, do they have the most complete team in the NFL, maybe outside of Philly? Or even including Philly? Yeah,
I would put them probably ahead of Philly.
Sure. I'm just trying to give the benefit of the doubt to the world champs. So, Micah
Parsons is you add him to a group that's already a good defense. You saw them last night. I mean, it was as someone who was we root for fantasy points. I don't like how good the Green Bay defense is. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Yeah. They definitely will at least force the offense to not be as pass heavy as we want them to be. But Green Bay is just a really complete team. We saw their defense play really well in week 2 against Washington last night. And I think that we should give a little bit of grace to this Detroit offense who went into Green Bay, had to face that same defense, new offensive coordinator. Now, look, I'm not a vibes-based guy that's like, oh, they're definitely going to bounce back just because they're more motivated now or anything like that. But Dan Campbell's the kind of coach that can rally the troops, and I'm optimistic about that. So my bold prediction this week, given it's at home, Goff plays a lot better at home, is that Detroit puts up a 40 burger against Chicago.
If they put up a 40 burger, that means Chicago's getting a lit. I mean, they've got to put up something. So you're going to get some, hopefully some garbage time or something.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Because the spread's 6.5 right now. All right. Mark Andrews scores twice. Boy, both these bold predictions are bold because of week 1.
That's right. Mark Andrews, guys, my bold prediction is that he's going to score twice this week. Okay. I don't think we're going to see a very pass heavy script. So this is going to have to be like a 4-catch, 2-touchdown performance from Andrews. But I thought this was kind of interesting. If you go back and look at, obviously he's faced the AFC North quite a bit, but every team outside of Cincinnati and Cleveland, he scored no more than 3 touchdowns against. He scored 8 touchdowns against Cincinnati in his career. He scored 11 against Cleveland. I was going through his box scores and looking at how he's performed against the Browns. He's like basically scored a touchdown in more games than not against Cleveland throughout his career. I think that this, the Ravens are going to they're going to have to get a W this week, obviously, after what they did in week 1. And they might have to be a little bit more aggressive offensively, given how that defense kind of collapsed against Buffalo last week. So I do think it's going to be a run heavy script for Baltimore, given the spread of this game. But, we'll say that Mark Andrews has a very efficient game without Isaiah Likely. I was a little bit disappointed that Andrews' route share wasn't strong without Likely this past week, or as strong as it was without Likely last year, where he ran like 96%, ran around on like 96% of the team's dropbacks. But even if he's at like an 80% rate this week, he could still find the end zone a couple of times.
All right. Well, thank you for that. He's plus 1,400 to score 2 touchdowns on Sunday on draft.
I mean, I'm not saying. Look, I'm not saying.
I know you're not. I'm just saying I might have placed a small little.
As I was talking.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I just looked it up. DraftKings has the app. You just open up the DraftKings app and scroll down. All right. Yeah. Because if you're right for this bold prediction, I want to not take a victory. I'm not taking a victory lap.
You're just taking a monetary.
Yeah, I'm just cashing out. All right. Look ahead, waiver wire. These are guys that you talked about. We mentioned Jeremy McWeapons, and Chris Rodriguez.
Yeah, look, is it cheating that I'm talking about players that got hurt, on Thursday night and stuff?
No, because like people are going to be talking about this.
Yeah, that was my thought too. So
people are wanting to know because you've got kind of a hot take right here.
I have kind of a I have a nuanced take to all of this. I think that like the instant reaction is that like the knee-jerk reaction to Austin Eckler going down and being out for the year is that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt sees a big boost, right? I don't think that's really the case at all. Like, I think that what we're going to see is that Jeremy McNichols plays the Austin Eckler role. Like, he's going to see a boost, like some boost, right? But Jeremy McNichols is likely going to play the Austin Eckler role where he's the long down and distance, 2-minute back. And maybe he sees some carries on the ground. JCM probably sees a bigger bulk of the running back rushes than he did when Eckler was there. So there is a boost to his overall, profile. But the one thing that is in my mind is that Chris Rodriguez profiles most of the 4 running backs they have. So this includes Austin Eckler. He profiles most as a goal line short yardage back of all of them. And so what if, maybe this is too galaxy brain, but what if Chris Rodriguez getting called up and not being a healthy scratch means that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt no longer is going to see some of those goal line looks that we don't know if he would have been seeing or not, because they haven't had that many opportunities there. But what if this is actually like a negative from that perspective? I think long-term, it's definitely a positive for JCM's fantasy value, just because he can grow into a bigger role and grow into a pass catching role. More so talking about like the next month or so. The one thing that does scare me too is that they go and trade for someone, because this is a team with Super Bowl aspirations, and
Some
they
are saying
currently
they
have a
should
backfield.
trade for Brian Robinson.
Yeah, right. Yeah, go after Brian Robinson. They currently have a backfield of Chris Rodriguez, who's been a healthy scratch. Jeremy McNichols has been a journeyman, who I loved coming out of college, for the record. I'm a big Jeremy McNichols guy.
Boise State?
Yeah. Big Jeremy McNichols guy. Yeah, he was a Boise State guy.
Yeah.
And then, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 7th round pick. I mean, would you be shocked if they go and try to make some sort of move to get another running back in that backfield? I wouldn't be totally shocked. So I think that it is a slight boost for JCM, but maybe not as big as others do. And there might be a little bit of downside just given the Chris Rodriguez stuff. I think you have to probably add McNichols over Rodriguez at this point, because he's been playing over him and we know he has a role. Whereas they clearly like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt more than Rodriguez in more of that early down role. So that could really go south. So deep leagues, you can go after Rodriguez. Most leagues, you can go after Jeremy McNichols.
And people forget that Rodriguez played where in college? JJ?
Kentucky.
Yeah, there you go. JJ said his little bar party trick is that he asked his friends to ask him where any offensive skill player
from the last 4 years,
where they went to college, and he can tell you.
Yeah.
All right. Obviously, again, last night, some people are saying, yes, this is cheating. This is absolutely cheating, JJ. We don't want to hear about what you have to say as a fantasy analyst about these situations that we need to know about for next week. Just kidding. Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks.
Yeah.
Wicks was on the hands team, by the way, last night.
Yeah, which is pretty wild.
Bullish.
Pretty wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, Romeo Doubs, I think is, the easy go-to. He's been running the most routes on the team. He's a more stable asset at wide receiver. Dontavian Wicks, though, had a 65% route share, 23% target share in week 2. He's going to get a lot of run. Like, they're going to have a 3-man rotation of those two and Matthew Golden. And I don't think that they have like a go-to slot. I think that they'll rotate like a Wicks and Golden kind of going in and out. Dobbs has been more so a perimeter guy throughout his career. But yeah, I mean, like, without Jaden Reed there, you're going to see these other guys hopefully see a bigger boost in the amount of routes that they're running. So I will be adding them off the wire. I think Romeo Doubs is the 1A here, or just the 1. Wicks is the 2. But in most leagues, like in deeper, in most leagues, you should be adding Dobbs for sure if he's not already added. And then because he was also a sleeper this week, for the record. Yeah. And Dontavian Wicks, I think, is an add in like, deeper 12-man leagues or 14-teamers.
Okay, let's get to Mason Taylor.
Yeah, monitor his health. He was a deep sleeper for me. This is just, again, a look ahead waiver wire, just trying to project like what could go down that could make people run
especially
to the waiver
tight
wire.
ends. Especially with
exactly.
Right now.
There's tight ends stuff going on right now, and so people need the position. He had a good route share last week. Maybe in this negative game script against Buffalo, he gets targeted a little bit more. He's a young player, and so people are like, "Oh, I got to get in on this now," because it might be too late because the peripherals are starting to get there already, and if they're there this week, maybe the production matches. But even if it doesn't, people are going to start adding them off the wire.
Yeah, I'll also ask for the Golden after the Reed injury. Go back and listen. I know Elle also joined late, but go back and listen to the news section where we talked about Reed and where Golden is for that.
Yes.
All right. You've got some other guys here: Isaac Tesla, Kyle Monangai, and then Troy Franklin.
Yeah, so Isaac Tesla is just, okay, we saw him run 3 routes and he scored a touchdown on one, so maybe that improves this week, or maybe there's an injury in Detroit. He's not a bad stash. Kyle Monangai, there was some coach speak stuff about maybe them establishing the run a little bit more and getting more stuff going on the ground. I don't think that I think DeAndre Swift looked good in week 1, and Monangai did not from the limited sample. I just don't think he's the same kind of like burst as DeAndre Swift does. So I'm not like overly optimistic. I know this is the second week in a row that he's been on this list, but when you think about what people could be adding without an injury on the waiver wire, this is the kind of player and archetype that we would be looking at. Troy Franklin last week, 65% route share, 16% target share, 63% of his routes out of the slot. So he's playing that Devon Vele role that they, obviously they traded Vele before the season. And my question is, what if Denver just plays better offensively? That could easily translate to more fantasy points, especially because he gets down the field. And then all of a sudden people are like, oh man, maybe we should be adding Troy Franklin. So Franklin is one that is definitely on my radar right now. And then lastly, for the look ahead waiver wire, I talked about them all week. Seattle's defense. I think you can play Seattle this week. They're only 23% rostered right now over on Yahoo. And as Kitchen likes to point out that I say it weird.
You do?
Yahoo. He's 23% rostered on Yahoo. And they get New Orleans next week. I think you can play Seattle's defense this week as like a fringe top 10 option and be fine. And then you can just play them next week as they get New Orleans.
Yeah, and I would also say, I was just looking up in my Norman League, like someone picked up Quentin Johnson, which is a good pickup, but then they dropped like Ray Davis. Like those are the guys that you want to look for that have those paths if you get like injuries ahead of you.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So, you gotta watch this week, especially. There's a lot of like
overreaction.
Yeah. Cause there weren't like that many amazing waiver wire ads, especially if you had like Trey McBride and you didn't need a tight end. So
yeah, especially. And if you need a running back, there was like really nobody.
Right. And so people were dropping like Jaden Blue, who for the record, I don't think Jaden Blue is I think he's going to be inactive again this week, but I still think the thesis of the stash is still there in my opinion.
Okay. You've got Seahawks as your defense.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I talked about that.
Yeah. Any other defenses you like for next week?
Not off the top of my head.
All right. Let's get on then to the final closing. I'm looking for that.
The late round main event.
So close to having a good show.
What a great. Not only that, but you played the main event one again.
I know. I was looking for the generic one. And I've got to.
What do you want me to hire a producer now?
Please don't fire me. All right, we're gonna get to the quad box. These are games that you like. I have these listed. Here's the thing, though, JJ. This week, 2 Monday Night Football games.
Yeah, why do they do this? This is the worst.
They usually do it for week 1.
Yeah, but they changed it. I can't remember why. There was a reason that they changed it. I think they changed it because they've been doing the Friday game.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so, but then there's some sort of like law that there's a certain day where you can't do Friday games anymore because it becomes a high school day, high school football day or something like that. And so now they can't do Friday games. So they just do the 2 Monday night games. And it's the worst because the one starts at 10 o'clock. I'm not going to go to bed until 1 a.m.
9 for some people.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Stop this.
I was actually going to put that game as one of my quad box, just the late night hammer, knowing some people are asleep.
Go ahead, put it in there.
Okay,
you get first pick.
I'm putting Chargers and Raiders as the first game I have.
I am going to go with the indoor game of the Bears and Lions as my one of my games to watch this week. Okay. Because like I said, I think that we could see a lot of firepower from the Lions offense as a bounce back. And I liked what I saw from a fantasy perspective out of Caleb in week 1, maybe not as much a real perspective.
Okay. I'm looking at this and I've got to put it on here unless you want. I'll give you a chance to add one if you feel strongly about one. Okay. I mean, obviously this Eagles and Chiefs game. I know you said it's going to be a slog, but when you've got,
I could easily be wrong because I've been wrong about their Super Bowls. So I'm probably gonna be wrong again about this one.
All right. So I'm going, and it's for like the late afternoon. It's the only 4:25 Eastern game too. So you're kind of getting to see.
Yeah, not the only late afternoon game, but it's the late.
Right, there's like a 4:05. So like in the DFS world, you got the 4:05 and then you got the 4:25. Yeah. And the 4:25, that's like the prime time. So that's the one that ends the right before Sunday Night Football.
That's a sweat game.
Yeah. Yes, that's a sweat game.
And then I will go with as the last pick, the other dome game. It's actually a Sunday night game. I'm gonna go Falcons Vikings.
Ooh, that will be good.
My last one. I think that's gonna be a fun game.
Okay, I'll put it in here.
We talked a lot about that already. So Falcons Falcons Vikings could see some points scored, especially if the Vikings turn into the pass funnel that they kind of were last year.
Okay. Benton's giving me spreadsheet tips. Thank you.
There you go.
I thought it was shift. I didn't know it was alt. I thought it was shift, but maybe it's not. You know what's with do you ever use keyboard short? Are you a big keyboard shortcut guy?
Yeah, I mean I do for like macros and stuff.
Yeah, and I do it for like Photoshop, but if you ask me to tell you what button I'm pushing now, because I'm such a boomer, I'm just so used to it.
There's a question that I have to ask right now, and this is more for visual. It's not for really the audio listeners. And Eli Goose asked this as well. What are you like? How are you deciding how to capitalize these teams right now?
Did I put Bears versus Lions?
No. Look, it's fine, but Bears versus Lions is all lowercase. Chargers versus Raiders. Chargers is uppercase. Raiders is lowercase. Eagles versus Chiefs. They're both uppercase. And then the Falcons Vikings game says Falcons versus Vikings. So it's just the Falcons team just facing one singular Viking this week on Sunday night is where we're at.
Sorry.
You know what? Scan the QR code.
Sorry.
Just
it would get on my nerves as well. I didn't look at it while I was doing it. I'm just like typing in there, but it would get on my nerves as well.
You also call it Panera's, Walmart's.
Okay, yeah, I just say Kroger's. It took me a while.
Confirmed boomer. Okay,
people call me Kitchens
and Kroger's.
Yeah, people call me Kitchens all the time, but Kroger's, you can at least say like you're going into Kroger's, like grocery store.
You know what I've noticed since working with you is that people, I didn't realize how often people called you Kitchens with an S. It's like really common, like literally a 50-50 shot that someone's going to call you Kitchens.
Yeah, it's like you and Zachariason.
Yeah, that's probably actually, I probably get Zachariason more, unfortunately.
Yeah. Look at us, just two misunderstood last name guys. Want to just say, if you are watching this, thank you for watching. If you're watching it later, leave a comment. Let us know. Team QR code, not team QR code. What did you like? What did you not like? And, are you okay with not taking victory laps? Like, what victory laps are you not okay taking?
Guys, you don't need to hear me like victory lap things. You know if I got something right or wrong.
That's what I'm saying.
We'll talk about it at the end of the season when it's all done. It's been 1 week. That's
what I'm saying. Don't expect victory laps.
There's no victory laps and there's no victory unlaps. I mean, sometimes I will actually unlap and say that I'm wrong because then I can get ahead of it before.
Unlapped is not a word.
Yeah, I know, but
you just don't run. You just don't run the lap.
Yeah. I mean, like there's like, guys, I know, but we don't. My thing is, we don't need to sit here and worry about what we got right and wrong in the preseason when that's not helping anyone win fantasy teams.
C Park says no victory lap, but yes to pants off. And
pants come off.
Wesley says JJ gets things right so often he acts like he's been there before. It's like the end zone. You go straight to the sideline. No touchdown celebrations for you.
I mean, look, if I were a player, I would celebrate. I would have like a cool dance.
Have you seen the airwalk?
You just don't need to do that in fantasy football because it's not. There's a lot. You should be. The amount of touchdowns that people score should be a lot less than the amount of things you get right as a fantasy football analyst.
Okay.
So there's a lot more volume here of getting things right. I don't need victory lapping is insane.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. No victory laps here. So make if you agree with us, leave it in the comments. Thanks to JJ. Thanks to our sponsor, DraftKings. Appreciate you. And we will see you next time here on the Late Round Fantasy Football Show, sponsored by DraftKings.